Hey guys, Ken here from the One Punch Armory, and today we have something tremendously special. And of course, as y'all would notice, it's going to be another Deltin Sidesword. Now this one is purchased from Matt Irish on the Sword Buyer Guide Sword Forum. If you haven't checked out the Sword Buyer Guide yet, it is a tremendously amazing resource and archive of many people buying all the other swords. And they post reviews, their thoughts, pros and cons about the sword that they have. Some of them are going to be reproduction, and some of them I think could be antique. And again, it is a very, very important archive for any sword lover. Okay, so if you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to check out the Sword Buyer Guide. I'm going to be putting a lot of my reviews on there as well, because I think that's just a really good place to give back to the community. Any further, it came in a massive box. This box is 4 feet long by almost 13 inch by 13 inch. Now, the sword obviously is not that big. So, Matt Irish, Daniel, has put in a lot of excellent precaution into making sure my thing shipped absolutely amazingly well. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's get cracking. All right. This is spectacular. I cannot believe how much care is taken into protecting this beautiful work of art. I am just so impressed. Daniel, thanks for doing this. This is amazing. I have to say, this level of protection, it's way better than what I get even from Deltin himself. And I pride myself in Deltin Master Falvio to be very good at his packaging, but man, you took it one step above. So let's look at how he packages, because I think it's just the right thing to do to show how much care he has. At the tip where most of the damage get taken in the scabbard, one thick pool noodle that is really, really well put in there. Well, I guess I have pool noodles now. And the scabbard smells amazing. It smells like genuine leather. Well, obviously it's made from genuine leather, but wow, I am so impressed how it's made. It's obviously handmade. I've always liked handmade object compared to machine made. And of course, in the Krillin, which is the side ring, we have more, and the handle itself. He even taken precaution into zip tying a foam piece onto the handle itself to make sure that it is in pristine condition. I'm just, wow. You know what? I need to get a plier to cut this out, so that's just how much care he has. 1 second, I'll be back. Okay. More bubble wraps, and wow! What an absolute beautiful sword that is. Crazy thing. He also zip tied the back of the hand protection to the scabbard itself, and because of course this scabbard does not come with a belt, it has all the risers preparing for the belt. So he actually put a zip tie on the riser and onto the sword itself. Fun fact, if you brought this to the Ren Fair and you see this like that zip tied, they probably will actually just let you in because they know that your sword cannot be taken out. So if you want to wear your sword out, that's actually a very, very good way of doing it. Zip ties into your scabbard. Okay? At least that's what happened in Canada. So let's cut these open. Amazing. Truly amazing. So now we have the whole sword in the scabbard assembly. This one is the Deltin model 2161, and it should be weighted at 1,330 grams with the total length of 108 centimeters. You can still get this at Deltin. However, I got mine as third-handed. Once again, thanks to Matt Irish for selling me this sword. Let's look at it. First off, I'm just gonna pull the sword. As soon as I held the sword, it feels tremendously comfortable. We have the top Krillin, the bottom Krillin, and of course we have the inside hand protection. We start seeing these inside hand protection in the later 16th century when they become complex hilt, and that will be seen commonly in swept hilt rapiers. So what I'm holding right now is the evolution from the early Sidesword that has one fingering or two fingering into a swept hilt rapier. I'm gonna get a dating for this later on, but for now this dating sword is to the 16th century. And with the beautiful matching scabbard, this is a handmade one, I believe that Matt Irish probably did himself. Beautiful blue genuine leather with a wood core finish with a quadruple riser system of a leather scabbard. Oh then, one second, my dog is trying to eat all the bubble wraps. Let me get the culprit. This is the culprit who was trying to eat all the bubble wrap. Anything that. So I'm gonna put him right here for now because he doesn't eat bubble wrap. So going back to the video. Sorry. So genuine leather, we have a couple of really interesting symbols on here. For now, the first symbol, we're gonna have some sort of flower motif right here. Very, very common in the Italian systems. And of course, we have the interesting fleur-de-lis. I suppose that's just a personal take on it. I thought it was kind of cool. And we have this beautiful single ridge riding right down to the end of the scabbard. And in the back, we see that this is actually stitched all the way in black thread all the way to the top. So we see that there's some dye work that is actually quite lighter in color and darker in some color. That's just because when you have a genuine piece of leather, some part of it is actually lighter, some part of it is darker. So when you dye it blue, some part we get darker and some part we get lighter, and that's just how the organic material behave. But for now, this is probably one of the most beautiful scabbard I've ever had in a sword. This entire sword was sold to me for 540 euro, sorry, USD, which is tremendously cheap for a sword, and especially one of the scabbard. I just have to have it. It is a piece of Deltin as well, and we all know I'm a sucker for Deltin swords. They are a genuine artsmanship in terms of the faithfulness in recreating the true fighting arts of what they had in the 16th Renaissance century. And of course, that's my field of study. So let's get to the sword. First, we're gonna see an absolutely beautiful pommel right there. It is a peen construction as of every single Deltin product. So because the peening is still here, obviously the whole sword is still original. We have a wire grip that is rolled flat. So we're gonna see a couple different wire grip systems. We have the flat roll and we have a thin roll right in here. And as per every single Deltin fashion, the brass roll weave on the bottom of the pommel and the top of the chafe of the handguard. Very, very distinct of every single Deltin product. And of course, if you want, upon request, you can actually ask Master Valvio to have this done in a wood finish, and leather finish, and whatever finish you want. I'm always a sucker at wire wrap. The pro is they look absolutely stunning and I just love wire wrapping. But the con is that if you're really fighting with a wire wrap sword, they are quite slippery. So if you have really, really good point of contact in your sword, wire wrap is okay. But if you're fighting with an earlier century sword or later century sword that you cannot either use your thumb or use your finger ring to go around your guard, you will find that your sword is going to be a little bit more loose. Okay? And then of course we get the crinoline. In the model 2161, you can see that there is some crinoline that is slightly bent, slightly up, or slightly back. This is of course up to upon request as per most Master Valvio stuff. And mine is a straight crinoline, which is what I absolutely love. If you look at the attention to detail on the crinoline, look at that. That is just stunning. That is all hand file work. That's crazy. And Master Valvio make all these by hand, and these are, so if you look at the detail work right there, if it's focused into the sword, and because I'm going to get a bit more close up onto this, and so I just love how all the little pieces that we see onto here, we can see that there's a lot of little file marks as imperfections because Master Valvio make this by hand. It is absolutely amazing. I'm gonna put Odin down for a second because I think he's done puppy jail. Right, Odin? Mwah. Okay. But putting me down, I'm just gonna put him in the back of my seat so he cannot get to the bubble wrap. Every single Master Valvios weapon from Deltin, it's unsharpened. Mostly because of the Italian law, they can't really ship sharp object. However, every single one of these pieces are meant to be practical. Master Valvio do comment that he does make work of art and he doesn't want to turn them into weapons. Okay, so if you ever choose to take one of the Deltin weapon artwork and sharpen them, they will be a fully functional sword. Okay, because that's how true to the art it is. Now, I'm gonna take the scabbard out. I know that this has been later on sharpened by either the first owner or the second owner. For now, I'm the third. Okay, so I love how the recoil right here is so tremendously comfortable. So let's just take out the sword. Oh, this feels so good. This is amazing. Wow. Okay, so the sharp edge is obviously still sharp. I am not gonna run my finger onto this because I can easily cut something, but it is not insanely sharp, so I can still touch it. If I run it along the back of my hand, yep, I can still get that skin out. So this thing is really sharp. In any case, this is a true Sidesword, is what it is. It is a cut and thrust weapon with a really beautiful broad blade at the center with an absolutely stunning fuller right in the middle. I always love how Master Valvio does his fuller because they're just so clean. The fuller runs almost to 1/3 of the blade, and then the rest is going to be quite, well, a plain diamond shaped blade, which is quite common of the century. I'm going to do a quick flex test. It is still really, really flexible, but so it is not entirely on the stiff side. What it means that it's going to be cutting tremendously well, and it thrusts itself, it will thrust and penetrate. Wow, give me a second, I'm just, wow, this is amazing. Okay, point of balance. So everyone's careful about point of balance, and mine is sitting at roughly around, I'm going to give it, actually that's really, really good balancing right here. So mine is currently sitting at roughly 4.5 inch measure from the handguard. So for a Sidesword of heavy weight itself, that is actually really, really good. Just holding itself, this feels tremendously nimble. It's not light by any means, but if you're fighting with it actually, this feels really nice. I might actually use this as my standard cutting sword now. I'm just impressed by this sword. So let's go back to the blade itself. Starting off as the profile, we're gonna start off as almost 1.5 inch of a blade profile, and then tapers to almost 1/2 inch at the needle point end. This is really beautiful. It's really rare to have blades that are fat on the bottom and it tapers dramatically to a really fine point. Why I love these kind of blade geometries, because it keeps all the weight back down into the blade itself, and it performs as an excellent cutter. We have a really light tip, so when it travels, when it cuts through the air, it goes really fast. In the Bolognese treatise, which is what I study, is that we talk about a sword, especially the Lagaki itself, we talk about a sword that needs to be strong, agile, and very nimble, and this just checks the mark. I think this is fantastic. So enough said about the blade itself. It's just a beautiful, beautiful blade. So a closer into the handguard itself, look at all these beautiful work right here. That's just a devil's amount of work of filing. And if you look at Master Valvio's actually video, you can see that he actually chiseled and filed all these by hand. These are not cast or made by machine. So every single one piece of Deltin is just a work of art. So we're gonna see that the back side, which is the side that you're gonna be wearing when you're gonna be having onto you, it's gonna be plain, which is okay. And then we're gonna see the closer look of the back defense right here, and if I put my thumb onto here, we still have a lot of space in between. One of the things that I really like to do is I like to get one of these handguard, just a handguard pommel, and I put it on a HEMA sparring blade. These rings are so big that I am sure you have no trouble putting on a HEMA glove and sliding your hand over it. This is just really good to be used as a sparring blade as well. Well, not the blade, sparring hilt, obviously. Now, a very, very important feature as to every single side sword that I have is this one, this place right here. That's called a sword block, or curling, whatever you call it, or I don't know what you call it, middle of the crossguard. However, into here, the important part is that we see that this is going to be in a triangular section that rises up with a bit of metal right here still. Right here, the thickness of the metal is still there. This part is extremely important when you are fencing with a side sword. I've been talking about the sword point of contact many times now. And it is tremendously important that your sword should behave as if it was a part of you. It should be a joint, right? If your sword is ever loose in your hand, that is a very dangerous sword to yourself because you have no control over it. And it's dangerous to your opponent because you're just wildly swinging. So point of contact is that your hand, of course, on the handle is one point of contact. Second point of contact is the finger ring. And look at where the pommel sits. This pommel is designed beautifully and in a very smart fashion where it is a little bit of an acorn, but it's a very quick transition from where the handle is, and it's a gradual transition to the pommel because look at where my hand is sitting. The bottom of my palm is sitting, the bottom of my hand is perfectly sitting at the pommel itself. This creates another point of contact. Lastly, why I'm talking about this sword block is because this sword block, if you put your thumb over the sword block, you will get more purchase into your sword. So that's how you get amazing point of control. Your handle is to hold the sword in there, your finger is to help to move the sword forward, and your thumb is to also help it to push and pull back onto your sword so you get that really nimbleness. And your pommel itself is just to lock in your sword so it doesn't overswing. I've always liked a handle that's just the length of my hand, is because in the Bolognese series we have a lot of attack called the tramazzone or the stratazone, which is a turn of the wrist of the attack. When your handle is too long, this will actually hit the back of your forearm and it stops you from doing those really quick bolognese cut. Obviously I can't do one right now because there's a table in the way, but if you were to do that really quickly, this sword moves really beautifully well. And I'm just very impressed by this sword right now. It's just, this is probably going to become one of my favorite side sword. So next, let's check the consistency of how much it weighs. So as advertised, this sword is technically supposed to be at 1,330 grams or so. So I'm gonna weight mine right now, and it comes in at 1,317 grams for only 13 grams of difference, meaning you're not gonna notice much. This sword is entirely true to the actual Master Valvio's specifications. And we're gonna go into the length itself. The blade, I'm gonna be measuring from the actual hand crossguard itself to the tip of the sword, and it comes in at a 36-inch blade, which is a very popular Bolognese sword. From the handguard itself to the end of the ricasso, we have a classic 2-inch, which is more than enough than what you need. The ring itself comes in at about a good 1.5 inches of space for your finger to go in, and every one of these rings comes up. The first one comes up almost close to 2 inches. The second one comes up at almost 2.75 inches, which is a lot of space for your hand to get into. Next, we're going to get into the handle itself, which is 3 inches. The pommel is going to be around 2 inches, and the entire crossguard assembly itself, the width comes in at 9.5 inches, which is a really long crossguard for side sword. This sword itself, it's actually very similar to the Town Guard Munich sword, which is in the same time period. I am just loving the sword right now. So oftentimes I would talk about pros and cons. Let's try to pick at it. The con itself, I have none. This is one of those really beautiful swords that I just handle and it's just like, this is my sword. This belongs with me. Then again, first thing, Deltin makes a fantastic, beautiful weapon. So anything that I've handled in Deltin has feel tremendously well. But Deltin has a few blades that are more tip heavy. And they would become not a really good cutter and it's just not one of my jam. And then in the later part of Deltin's career, we find that he makes blades that are way lighter, way more nimble, and way more comfortable. And this is just one of them. It's just fantastically beautiful. Like, this feels almost like one of my sparring swords, which is light. I use a sparring sword at 1,700 grams all the way to maybe 1,100 grams. Some as light as 900 grams. And this feels like a beautiful weapon. I can trust myself with this sword. That's the con. Do I have any? No. I can't find any. It's just too beautiful. So on to the pros itself of the sword. This is a tremendously beautiful sword. Everything about it is just so beautiful. First thing, what I love about it is that when we are doing any fighting, actual true fighting arts, because I study HEMA for half a decade now, it's that all the time is that for Sidesword, this first ring and the second ring will drop because you're constantly receiving hits onto these areas, because that's how you do most of the parry, right? We want to beat the sword away, but the sword will ultimately hit these handguard. This is a thick, really thick weld right here. That piece of metal, it's joint here, solid. I'm pretty sure that's not going to come down anytime soon. So I'm actually tempted to ask Master Valvio to make me a handguard of this one so that I can use it for sparring. Second handguard, just as robust. That connection right there is as thick as a Krillin. I've never had any Krillin of this thickness to ever bend. So this is a real fighting sword. And of course on the inside itself, these rings, it's enough protection for all you need. It does protect the thumb really nicely from downward cuts. And we're gonna see beautiful little channel right here. These are all finely done. If you ever get to hold a sword this way, if you want to put your thumb in the back, you have really good purchase. Now I don't fight in the fancy style when I put my thumb in the back, but if you do, you can. The grip itself, beautiful fat grip right here, so it fits your pommel perfectly. I've always liked a handle that starts thin and it ends in a circular bottom, because if you hold your hand up, your bottom of your hand is circular and the top of your hand is actually rather rectangular. So this fits just so well. And of course this sword, I can tell that it's been very well loved and very well taken care of. There's no visible rust, and any other patina is just naturally how Master Valvios like to have his weapon. Pommel itself, that is just a work of art on its own. It's just way too beautiful. And so of course a very clean peening work that we see right there as a focus. So itself, this sword itself just shout status. If you have this sword itself, you're most likely a really rich gentleman, or you are actually a nobleman yourself. Wow, I have to take this for test cutting. So that's enough for the sword for now. I have to give some appreciation to the scabbard itself. It is a solid wood scabbard. I'm not surprised in a pinch. I would use this as a parrying device. That's just how strong this is made. So let's get close to it, okay? So we're gonna see that a level of care has been put together for the actual top of leather, which is the top scabbard itself. There's a piece of genuine leather before we see that there's a bit of before we see the wood core on the inside. I can't really tell what wood core it is, but it looks like some sort of hardwood. It's relatively hefty per se, really nice and thick, and we see that even on the edge itself, these are all sewn at the top right here. Now a lot of times the stitching mark is actually done on top itself is because it protects the edge of the leather, and as well as when you put it back in, it feels into the sword, it feels nicer. We're gonna see some beautiful stamp work right here on the top, and this is all hand done. I'm not surprised if someone actually has a stamp that does this, but to my understanding, And there's a bit of mistake work here, which is what I appreciate, is that I think this is actually done by hand. That's just fantastic. It's crazy. And we're gonna go down to these motifs right here. There is a bit of a fleur-de-lis, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a French symbol, with some tooling work and a bit more of the circular motif. Down into the second set of risers right here that goes down into a middle channel. We see a lot of this middle channel in historical Scabbard as well in the later century, sometimes even in swords like Schiavona. So this is really nicely made. We're gonna go back to the back now. There is no metal chafe right here, but that's okay. Not all of them has it. Beautiful stitching work, very, very clean and very strong stitching work. I have to say that they not going anywhere. We're gonna go down. There's some part which is not. I actually really like watching people do stitching work, just because it's not easy to get a good stitching. Okay, and we're gonna go down and it goes all the way on top. I have bought this sword mostly for the scabbard because I just appreciate when people put their final finish onto the sword. So that is the whole set itself. And let me put it back in. Obviously it goes in beautifully, and it sits right at the top of the ring. Wow. I cannot give a sword 10 out of 10, but this is probably a 9.5 out of 10 right now. I am just floored by this sword. I'm just lost of words. This is a genuine piece of art I will happily hang on my wall. So guys, once again, this is a Deltin 2161 Spada Delato, and it's an absolute beautiful weapon that you can have from the later 16th century. It is a classic side sword with beautiful, beautiful flex, 36-inch blade at only 17 gram. I know it sounds high, but remember, a lot of the metal goes into the hilt itself, so this still moves tremendously fast. So if you guys ever found one of these Deltin 2161 and you're thinking about it or on the fence of buying one, I say mine came out impressively beautiful. So I would highly recommend you to pick one up right now. And if you ever come across in the sword buyer guide, the user Matt Irish, he is a genuine, really solid good guy. And he has shipped my sword really fast with amazing level of detail with all these pool noodles to cover the sword to make sure it's protected. So I had to vouch, he's a great buyer to buy from. I had such a good time buying from him. So in any case, I diverge, apologies. So the Deltin 2161, if you ever want to get yourself one, do so. And if you ever want to custom order one from Master Valveo Deltin himself, you can still buy one right now on his website. At first I was afraid that he actually had to take a retirement either this year or next year of 2026, just because he's quite an old gentleman and he is still building strongly. I've messaged him very recently and he said, nope, I'm still working, I'm not gonna retire yet, and even if I retire, I will still take small commission work. So I am very happy that in the human community and in the sword community, there are really good makers like Master Valveo who can produce these beautiful work of art for us. So I'm gonna sign off for now, but I'm gonna go on to take some more detailed shot of this blade because I am just absolutely stunned by this. If you have any question about this weapon, or if you have any question about how I put swords together, if I buy hilts, how do I turn into a Hema sword, comment down below. I am always happy to talk about swords, especially Sidesword. As you know, this is Sidesword number 15 and I was at one point at 19 to begin with, but I sold a couple so I can fund nicer beautiful swords. So, Ken here from the One Punch Armory, signing off for now. And once again, don't be a stranger, ask me any question you like. I just love to talk about swords. Until the next video, we're gonna be talking about other really cool stuff. Alright, signing off for now. See you again later. See ya.